My name is Dick Stout. I'm the Teton County prosecuting attorney. We have Ann Sutton, who's our district court clerk, as well as Sheriff Matt Carr. And it's great to be with you. I am new to this position. I was appointed 2 months ago as being county attorney to fulfill the outgoing county attorney here in Bison's term. So I am new to this project, but I'm very excited about it. I have been in private practice for 17 years and been in the courthouse pretty much every day. So the county has been working on this project and investing in it since 2018. There were a number of studies done to look at the condition of the courthouse and what could be done, if it could be refurbished, rebuilt in some way. And ultimately, it was determined in 2022 that that just was not possible, and that the courthouse needed to be rebuilt into a justice center. And in the time since then, the county's been working to design the project. Been a number of iterations, figuring out just what size we need to serve the community today and 50 years from now. So that process is ongoing, and this is a critical time in the project. So the SPET language, and we have it here if anyone wants to come look at it, but I wanted to speak about that this is an opportunity to have roughly 50% of this cost paid for by visitors through the SPET initiative. There is no state money out there that's coming to help us. This is the county's responsibility. And so this is a way that we can have visitors help fund this. And if the county is committed to building the Justice Center, and if we don't do it with the SPET money, we will have to borrow from the private sector, from banks in Texas or California. It will greatly increase the cost and affect other projects that the county would like to do in the future. So I want to give the microphone over to Ann and let her tell you a little bit about what life is like at the courthouse.
Hi everybody, as Dick mentioned, I'm Ann Sutton. I serve as your elected clerk of district court, and I've been in this position for 10 years. I have worked in the court system and the criminal justice system for 20 in other positions. I'm here today to hear what your questions are. I really want to make sure that we engage and get your questions answered. Having worked in the courts for 20 years and in 10 years in an elected capacity, I've seen the needs, I've felt the needs, I've read about all of the assessments about the needs, and spent the last 5 years exploring options with the fellow leadership in the courts and in the county. One thing I want to mention is kind of like 911 and search and rescue and law enforcement, which the sheriff will talk about. Many people don't anticipate needing the services of the court, right? It's a service that you hope is available, but you hope you may not need. But I just want to let you know that the courts are very busy. For those people who have had cause to be in the courts, it's really important work. The work of the court has great impact on people's lives in so many different ways. There's quite a wide variety of casework that happens, and we can talk about that depending on your questions and your interests. I really want to emphasize that your justice facilities in this new Justice Center, it's all about providing really core values. The justice facilities is where the right to be heard, where due process, and where the rule of law take place. Now, you may or may not have had the opportunity to experience what that's like as a plaintiff or a defendant or a juror, but many of your community members have, and many visitors have. And we'll be able to talk more about that if the questions come up. I look forward to the conversation. I feel strongly this is an important need for the community to have sufficient facilities, and I feel a duty to you all as an elected official to make sure that you have them available when you need them.
Thank you, folks. Teton County Sheriff Matt Carr. I want to first off thank you all for being here, staying here, putting in the time. What we're trying to do today is to deliver a message that hopefully you can share with friends and family about the need that we have here in Teton County for a new justice center. That's a huge number. That's a scary number. I get that. I understand that. And as Mr. Stout stated before, the county has done all due diligence on trying to see what options there are with our current courthouse, with any modifications that we could make, that we could attempt to do, and we've exhausted all of those. We're stuck with a courthouse that was built back in the day and wasn't built quite to the specs and really will not withstand any sort of seismic issues and does not meet the needs of the community as it stands. So what we're trying to do today is really to let you guys know the story and the need for what we have. The Justice Center houses critical infrastructure for Teton County. It's our dispatch center, it's our 911 center, it's all the infrastructure that's tied to that center that are critical in any sort of event that we have here in Teton County that we need to respond to. And like Mr. Stout said, we are looking at that number and we're looking about how to make this happen and the financing options. SPET is the best option, we believe, and we believe the county has really done a lot of due diligence on this. The justice system that's utilized, whether it's search and rescue, whether it's the sheriff's office, the court systems, those are duly used by both visitors and citizens here in Teton County, or residents here in Teton County. So we believe that SPET is the best option to put those costs out to be burdened by both visitors and the taxpayers. Otherwise, this project falls solely on the taxpayers of Teton County, and we don't want to see that happen. We want to see that SPET option be used for the future of that. Again, when we're talking about first responders, I've always been an advocate for our dispatch center. I think it's one of the biggest, I think it is the most difficult job in law enforcement. What they deal with on a daily basis, the center that they're currently in, the overcrowding, the fact that we have no way to expand our dispatch center at this point are critical issues for the county. Not to mention the fact that if we do have an environmental event or an earthquake of some sort, the last thing we want to go down is our dispatch center, because those are the folks that get help to the people of Teton County that need it. They get the right resources out there. Again, I know this is a big number and it's a lot to talk about. We're not up here to present the whole slideshow and the history of this. We do have QR codes on here and some of the handouts that we've done. Please check those out. Please share those with friends. What you'll see there is the time and effort that the county commission has put into this endeavor. Us as electeds, as your electeds, we're proud to serve as your electeds. We're asking for your help on this one because we believe SPET is the right way to go and really the right way to see it. And you'll see a lot more information that's linked through that QR code about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish here. Again, we believe, I was listening to some of the questions that come up here. We believe that it's incredibly important to keep the Justice Center in the community, in the center of town, not to move the Justice Center to the outskirts, which would create other problems of purchasing land and all that sort of stuff. But we've got the place, we've got the location, we need to get this done, but we need the taxpayers' support to make it happen. Anything you else want to add? And we're certainly, please, any questions that come up. We've got commissioners in the room. I think this is an all-out effort to really let people know what's out there, what our options are, and what we're trying to do and accomplish. Yep, please.
And we did have 24 slides that we could have gone through with you today, but our understanding of this forum is really to be available to you, for you to ask questions of us. So the content that is in the 24 slides that talks about all of the assessments that Dick mentioned and Matt has mentioned, this has been very studied for the last 5 years. The structural assessment, the energy audit, the facilities assessment, scope reduction, financial analysis. We have that information. We just thought that the time was better spent answering your questions. So please use the QR code and go to the links that are made available.
So if our folks on video can't get their telephone to work for the QR code, is there a website name that takes them to all of that?
It's Engage Teton County. What's the exact website? I apologize, I think I have it.
Could we post it with the video? We could post the link with the video.
The link will be posted with the video. Thank you.
All right, if anyone has a question, Leah has a.
Hi there, thank you for presenting tonight. I do have 3 questions. First question, since you guys are putting this forward as SPET, what would happen, I mean, who makes the decision to put it forward as SPET versus, I would assume it goes through as a mill levy? How is that decision made?
I'm going to see if you're looking my way. Yeah, that's the kind of commission. I'll predict your next question. If SPET doesn't pass, what happens?
What was that, sorry?
If this doesn't pass, then what happens?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, sleepless nights. I think we have 3 options. One is no build. That's not an option for me. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say I don't think it's an option for the commission. 2 is to borrow. That's going to cost a lot of money, something around $80 million. That's a 30-year millstone around the county commission's neck. That's a challenging world to have to forecast. And then the 3rd is to increase property taxes. Nobody wants to do that. We all know what you're going through. I'm going through it. We're all going through it. It's the last thing we want to do is raise property taxes. So the sheriff said it. The SPET was built to fund these kind of projects. The SPET was built to fund big capital projects. This is a big capital project. It's an important need in our community. And in 4.5, 5 years, we can have it paid off with 1 penny of sales tax.
Second question. We are currently still paying off 15 SPET items for 2022, which came to a total of $166 million that will not be paid off until 2031. I just verified that with our treasurer this afternoon. 2031. This is not in addition to, this doesn't mean this starts after 2031. This starts now. This is an additional tax on top of your already existing tax, which lasts through 2031. This is an additional percentage on top of that already 6%. So you're asking us to pay $88 million right now on top of the $166 million we already owe. I'm just trying to see the financial viability of that. Can we not push that to 2031? And also, how do we know for sure that you're not going to keep this 7% tax? When this $88 million is paid off, does it go back down to 6?
Yeah, it's not up to us whether we keep the tax. It's up to y'all. It's up to us as a group as to whether we keep the 7 penny. And I don't think there's been any discussion about keeping that 7 penny. It's a fair question. When you talk about $88 million, and Dick said it, do we want to pay that $88 million ourselves? Or do we want to fund it with about $40 million from our visitors? That's a visitor subsidy that, if I'm going to the grocery store and I'm buying a $10 steak and it's $4 off, I'm going to buy it because of the discount. This is essentially an opportunity to discount an $110 million project. So I don't know what we'll do if we don't get the SPET passed. I do know that I don't think there's many other options than those 3.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner, I'm a little confused by the answer. It is my belief that you don't add SPET tax on top of SPET tax.
You can.
That the SPET is the 7th penny. You're not going to add another penny on top of that.
The SPET would get us to 7 pennies. And I'll take a moment. I got five toy stores. I got 1 here. I got 4 around Salt Lake City. Even with the 7 penny, this is the lowest tax toy store that I own. Okay? And we don't have income tax, and they do in Utah. So we don't have a lot of mechanisms to fund projects like this. SPET is the mechanism. I hope that you can see that. I hope that you can share that with your friends and family. The project's critical, and the time is now. We have the plans pretty dialed. I think we've got the right architects. We've got the right builders. We don't have the money. We're looking at y'all, and we're looking at y'all to make what I would consider a fairly small sacrifice over the next 5 years. You know, the other point that Kat made is all the other SPET items. Well, those were all supported by probably most of you in this room. They were supported by our community, and they went out in 2031. We put a lot out there. The voters said yes to all but one. So now we're putting something else out there. This one will be done well in advance of 2031. So that the idea that it'll be done just before 2031. But this tax cannot, unlike the SPET tax that we currently have, that's gone through the cycle. It's my understanding that the voters have to approve a SPET tax for 2 cycles, and then in the second cycle, they can choose to make it permanent or not. Okay, so we're asking for 1 cycle. I'm going to call a phone friend.
Former clerk Sherry Daigle can also correct us. So the SPET money is there until it's collected, and then once it's collected, the penny goes away. So that can happen on March 1st of any given year. It's not tied to a specific date that the tax expires. Our historical practice in Teton County has been, with that 6th penny, to propose new SPET measures. So we have had a sustained 6th penny for many, 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 many years. The 5th penny, general purpose penny, I believe was the one that you were speaking about. I can't remember the statutes off the top of my head that we made permanent that stayed with us. But the SPET, if we were to retain a 7 cent, we would have to propose new projects in the future that you would all get to vote on.
I just wanted to add really quick, having sat with many of the meetings and made my own public comment before the commissioners about the needs of the courthouse, the courts in particular. One of the things I heard over and over again in the meetings, to your point about perhaps waiting till 2031, is the construction costs get more expensive every day we wait. I think this is really important for all of us to know. This issue, as I've said to the commissioners before, I view this as a need, as a critical infrastructure facility, not a wish list item. With that in mind, delays mean more cost. That means more cost to the taxpayer. That means more cost to the commissioners to have a balance with their budget and on all of those things. So I appreciate the question about waiting. That was one of the things that stood out to me was every year we heard the experts, I'm certainly not the financial experts, say it was just going to be incrementally more expensive to all of us.
There's also some infrastructure in the building that has reached its end of life. So as somebody who's financially responsible, I'm faced with a tough decision. Well, am I going to go replace the air conditioning unit? Am I going to go replace this, that, and the other thing in a building that needs to be torn down today?
This question was left over from the last group of questions that we gathered from the audience. If approved, what is the plan for operational logistics during construction? This is a kind of a shift to a different topic. And where will we have court?
If I could just, that's my question from earlier, sorry. That was my question, but now I understand this is happening whether we have to SPET or not at some point. I live a block from the current court complex, and the traffic is pretty intense already. My property taxes have almost doubled in the past years, not quite doubled, but very close to it. So my question was, and I understand you're trying to tear down everything that's there and build something new. Where, as a practical matter, are you having court, where employees want to work, and wherever that is, why can't that be the new location if it's perhaps cheaper for all of us as a taxpayer? That's my question.
I'll take a stab at that. I think a lot of that is still to be figured out. Our owners' representatives are working on that. They have, I think, some preliminary ideas of where that will go. The Hanson Courthouse, which faces Simpson Street in that block, we have designed the building so that that will stay. And I think the plans are that will serve some of those needs in the interim period, particularly for the district court. And so, but that's an ongoing part of the project to completely figure that out.
Well, with all due respect though, you're asking us to vote for it in less than a month. So what is the actual plan and the timeline if this are to pass for SPET specifically, for it to be funded by other sales tax and not all of us with our property tax? What's the plan?
Yeah, I understand the question, yeah, and that is a very good question. But we do have temporary options available. We have, so currently in the courthouse right now, we have circuit court, we have district court, we have the clerk of court's office, we have the county attorney's office, and we have the sheriff's office. We also have the critical infrastructure for the dispatch center and everything that happens in and around that. So each of those places needs a new location. It will be a culmination of different temporary housing places. For the courtroom, again, as Mr. Stout was saying, we're going to retain the Hanson Federal Courthouse, if folks know where that is, and cycle the courts through there as much as feasible, as much as possible. We do have owners reps, as Mr. Stout said, that are working on the other aspects of the temporary housing that's going to be allocated throughout. But we're all going to be split up and spread out for this construction project. So we realize that's going to have to happen, but that's the way it has to happen. There's not another building that we could all move into. And we also don't want to really rupture the commercial market with knowing exactly who's going where and how that's all going to happen. So those are questions that the owners' representatives, we have Wimber that's working with us, has been working with the county for a long time. Those are very serious questions that they are working on, and they have solutions to most of them. We're working through the rest. But I understand the timing and I understand your concern, so thank you for the question.
I also wanted to add, when we started, in my experience serving as the clerk of district court in these meetings that have been happening for longer than 5 years, we started with the need. We didn't start with building a new building, right? We started with the needs that were starting to develop, and they came in all shapes and sizes, and so all of these assessments happened. And I just want to assure you all, in the 24 slides that the information is available to you, and they may have been important for this audience. There was a hard look, and I think it was almost presumed at the first that it would be some kind of remodel and perhaps some kind of addition, right? That was the thinking. But then all of the things started stacking up. The building that you would have heard about in the slides, if you haven't heard already, correct me if I'm wrong, was built in the late 1960s. I'm looking for anybody to correct me. 67. It was renovated in 1997. Maybe to be a little bit, to be what you see today. But it turns out, and I'm going to oversimplify this, I am not a construction expert, but these were my takeaways. In 1967, when it was built, it wasn't built to code in 1967, it come to find out. So that's a problem back in the 60s, let alone how much the code has developed today. And so as we dug deep into it, there was no option for the remodel or just the addition that might have helped serve the needs of the court. And that was important to me because I don't think any one of us are actually, I would have preferred a remodel, I would have preferred an addition. It's certainly disruptive to neighbors, it's disruptive to our operations. We're going to do everything we can to make it as smooth as possible. But one day this is going to happen, and as we talked about, one day, the longer the one day goes, the more expensive it gets. So I feel for where you're coming from. I just wanted you to know there are just these code issues that are insurmountable with any other option.
I would just add that the temporary solution is very much not ideal. So the idea that the temporary solution could somehow become a permanent solution, that is not even, like, the temporary solution is going to be incredibly challenging to work around. And then I'll also bring up, this building is not fit to serve any longer. And we've tried in the past to rehabilitate buildings that are not fit to serve any longer. And we've learned some lessons. And I'm happy to say that that one of those lessons was we're going to dig into a building deeply to understand what works and what doesn't. What are the strengths and weaknesses? And we found some real weaknesses in the building that's there today. And I'm glad we didn't try to pursue a remodel or a renovation to the existing structure. We would have come to find out that was a dead end. So I think we've done a good job up to this point, stewarding the process. You know, the funding has been tricky. We've tried all kinds of different things to fund this building. This is where we are today because none of those panned out.
So what's the total cost of the project? This is $88,888,000. 88,000
Million.
Whatever that is.
A couple zeros there.
$88 million for the SPET. What's the total cost of the project?
Total cost $118 million. We've got 30 set aside that we put aside a year and a half ago when we thought that some of these other funding mechanisms might come home. We wanted to put some money up front. So I'm glad we made that investment. I'm glad we made that commitment. But it's an expensive building.
So in the past couple of years or whatever it is, you put $30 million in reserves toward this building. So then 118 million total.
Yes, sir.
How about one more question, and then that's it for the evening?
Can we close?
Yeah, one more question.
Thank you for presenting this. I attended the design meeting with the 24 slides, and they did a great job explaining what you asked about the phasing of how they were going to move from building to building. So I suggest that people go to that QR code or wherever to find that. Having said that, I support this. I think it's a great project. What is disappointing to me is in that meeting, they talked about the failure to follow design standards in the old building. There was actually a lack of oversight in construction that caused some of the problems that you're dealing with today. So my question comes to you, what are you going to do to make sure that this design is sustainable, will last 50, 75, 100 years? Who's going to be doing the oversight? And are you going to be thinking about things like electric vehicle connections and putting the sheriff's vehicles undercover so in a winter time like Jackson, they don't have to sit out in the snow at night and you have to clear the windshields to go on a police run?
Sure, thank you for the question, and that's a great question. And those are in the plans, both the electric vehicle and both the covered secured parking that we know that we need. There are a lot of security issues with the current building. I will refer back to what the county commission has chosen to do by hiring an owner's representative. That's what gives us the faith that this project is going to be started and completed with the expectations that are laid on the table. I have complete confidence in the architectural firm that's been chosen for this. They really do courthouses all over the country. They're just amazing professionals. And I think that that's really speaks well of what we've done. But we also have to have an owner's representative to assure that all those specs are met, that all of those expectations are met. That didn't exist back in the 60s, 70s. I can't really speak to what happened or how those issues came up. It's unfortunate, but it did occur. And it's something that we've recognized and we move on. We just don't want to repeat that history. So I think that's where the county commission, by securing Wimber, has really put us in a good position to make sure that we don't face those issues again.
Is that what we got? Questions or?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I'll just sum up really quick, and these folks have a lot to say too, but we were a little hesitant to come here and flick off a slideshow and actually didn't know quite how much time we had to present. So there is a lot of information out there. The slideshow gives a really good historical reference as to what the county has done, the due diligence they put in behind this, the plan moving forward, and how we're going to get through it. So please do check that out. We, as elected officials, it's just really an honor to stand in front of you all and say, look, this is a big ask, and we get it. It's a really big ask. But we feel like that it's the right path to go with SPET, and we really need to get the word out that this is the way that we think we should move forward on this big project. So I thank you all. Please don't hesitate to come talk to me or any of the other folks up here with questions. Please reference the materials that we have. It is truly a critical need for our community to protect it in the future. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And turn it over to you.
Thanks, everybody. I hope you do look at the information that is available. I wanted to share that I've thought a lot about this project and this need, and I share that it's from a number of different lenses. I've talked about standing before you as your elected clerk of district court who feels a duty to speak to the needs of the court that you may one day use. I also look at it from a supervisor of staff that work in the building and someone who works with colleagues day in and day out. I've worked with Dick in his various capacities through treatment court, when he's been a private attorney, and when he's a fellow elected. I have family members. My husband's in the room, retired 29 years from the sheriff's office. My stepkid's mom was a 20-year dispatch, still works for the sheriff's office, so I look at it as a family member. I also look at it as someone who may one day need the services. We've all heard in the news the different stories about the impactful 911 call, that some of them are newsworthy, some of them are not. You think about those headlines about there's an active shooter that the sheriff's office is responding to and that dispatch is dispatching for. You hear about accidents with recreation in either the search and rescue or the 911 responders who need to come. That may have been a visitor, it may be me, it may be my neighbor, it may be my family member. And I can tell you that the piece that people often don't know is what happens in the courtroom, as I've mentioned. I wanted to share a couple of tidbits. In the last just over 2 years, there's been over $17 million of judgments settled in court litigation, often through settlement and not jury trial, but sometimes through jury trial. The highest one in the last 2 years is $7.5 million. The lowest is $877. So our community members are on one side of that, or perhaps the tourists who visit are on one side of that. We've had 15 jury trials. Some of them have been criminal, some of them have been guilty, some of them have required a mandatory life sentence to be imposed, others have been not guilty. We've had plenty of civil litigation. I hope you don't find yourself in this position to need any of these services for any reason, but you or your loved one may one day be on any side of that equation. And I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, in my professional responsibility, this has been a big deal, and I appreciate your consideration of this particular tool to fund this particular need that isn't a shiny object, but it is a pretty fundamental to our democracy.
Thank you. I don't need to say much more. I just want to follow up quickly on a comment that Ann made earlier about costs. Construction costs can only go up. We all know this. And I want to just emphasize the effort that has gone into the design of this building to not only meet our county's needs now, but for the next 40, 50 years. So in the long run, this is the time that makes the most fiscal sense to get this project done. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Stout. $88 million is a lot of money, and I am humbly hoping that you can support this. We need your support on this. Our other options are terrible. So I hope that you can find a way to support it, and you can convince your neighbors to do the same. October 23rd is the next open house. From 12 till I think 5, 6, or 7. Come in at any point during that day. I'll be there. And I'd like to just take a minute to answer the last question a little deeper. This team, I've been in half a dozen meetings with this team going over minutia to make sure we're getting the project that is right for this community for the next 50 years and beyond. We have $3 million of funds that are dedicated to sustainability that come from our energy mitigation funds. So that's $3 million that's locked and loaded to making sure we're creating a sustainable building. This is the right project. This is the right time. We need help with the funding, and I'm hopeful that y'all will help us get us across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you guys, that was super. And thank you all for coming. I hope you come to the school board candidate forum tomorrow night. You won't see me up here, you'll get to see our friend Andy Schwartz up there. I will be here. So have a good evening, and I hope to see you.
Thank you, everybody.